Good day everyone, and welcome to Mr. Croupy Skeleton Stories. For today's story we will be featuring scary apartment experience. Enjoy listening and please subscribe. Get ready and here we go. Story 1. I walked into the dimly lit apartment, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Moving into a new place is always an adventure, but something about this apartment felt off. As I made my way through the living room, the flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the bare walls, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Hello," I called out, my voice wavering slightly. "I'm John, the new tenant. Is anyone here?" Silence greeted me, broken only by the soft creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet. I tried to shake off the strange feeling that crept over me and focused on unpacking my belongings. That night, as I lay in bed, the apartment seemed to come alive. Whispers echoed through the long corridors, never quite forming words, just a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. I pulled the covers tighter around myself, trying to block out the unsettling noises, but they persisted, growing louder with each passing minute. Unable to bear it any longer, I decided to explore the apartment, hoping to find the source of the inexplicable sounds. The hallway outside my room felt colder, darker than before, as if a malevolent presence lurked just beyond the walls. As I ventured deeper into the apartment, I noticed a door at the end of the hallway that I hadn't seen before. With a trembling hand, I turned the doorknob, unsure of what I would find. Inside the room, I was met with a sight that chilled me to the bone. The walls were covered in cryptic symbols, drawn in a deep scarlet paint that seemed to pulsate before my eyes. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel the weight of the room bearing down on me. Panic washed over me, and I tried to retreat, but the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. Suddenly, the symbols on the walls began to writhe and twist, shifting into hideous forms that filled the room with a sense of impending doom. I screamed for help, banging on the door with all my might, but my cries were drowned out by the haunting laughter that echoed through the apartment. Time seemed to stand still as I huddled in the corner, my heart pounding in my chest. Fear consumed me, and I could feel the presence of something sinister lurking just beyond the walls. It was as if I had disturbed an ancient evil, awakening a malevolence that was determined to claim me as its own. Days turned into weeks, and the apartment became my personal prison. The supernatural occurrences increased in intensity, leaving me in a constant state of terror. Shadows danced on the walls, whispers became screams, and objects moved on their own accord. Sleep eluded me, nightmares infiltrating my every moment of rest. Desperate for answers, I sought out the help of a renowned paranormal investigator. Together, we delved deep into the history of the apartment, unearthing its dark secrets. It was once the site of a cult ritual, where innocent lives were sacrificed in the name of a demonic entity. Armed with this knowledge, we conducted a daring exorcism, a battle between good and evil that shook the very foundations of the apartment. The air crackled with energy as we chanted ancient incantations, banishing the malevolent presence back to the shadows from whence it came. As the final words echoed through the apartment, a sudden calm washed over the room. The whispers ceased, and the symbols on the walls faded into nothingness. I knew then that I had finally found peace, and the apartment would no longer be haunted by the tormented souls of its past. Story 2. My name is Gregory, and I'm 30 years old. I had recently moved into a new apartment and I had been having the strangest experiences ever since. I hadn't realized it when I first moved in, but looking back, I could tell that something was wrong with my new home. It felt too quiet, the walls were bare and everything was impeccably clean. Although there was no strange noise or anything that would normally give me creeps, I couldn't help but feel an odd sensation every time I stepped inside my new home. One day, while in the kitchen, I heard a loud crash. I immediately ran to the room where it had come from, but all I saw were shattered pieces of glass on the floor. Thinking nothing of it, I cleaned it up and went on with my day. But soon enough, the strange occurrences started getting more intense. Every now and then, I would hear noises coming from rooms I hadn't even been in. From the corner of my eye, I could see shadows moving around the walls. And then there were the strange voices I heard in the middle of the night. For many days, I couldn't sleep and I started to get more and more frightened. I decided to call a priest and ask him to bless my home. When he heard my story, he called his friends and they came all the way to my apartment with their tools. They examined the entire place, searching in every room and corner. I followed them nervously, expecting that they would find something that could explain the strange events that I had been experiencing. When they finished their inspection, they gathered around me and told me the scariest story I had ever heard. It turned out that my apartment was infested with ghosts. They had probably been living there for a long time but had been lying dormant until my arrival, when they sensed that somebody new had moved in. The priest performed a ritual and exorcised the spirits. His friends advised me to burn some special incense in the place and to never forget to say the prayer of blessing. From that day on, everything in my apartment returned to normal. I still keep my home in perfect order and light the incense every night before I go to sleep. Although I still get the occasional unsettling feeling, I know that I'm safe as long as I keep the ghosts at bay. Story 3. My name is Marcus. I like to think of myself as an adventurous soul, always looking for something new and exciting. I'm at my best when I'm exploring and seeing what life has to offer. Recently, I decided to rent out a new apartment and, I must admit, I was really excited about it. At first, everything seemed normal and it all seemed quite peaceful. I was really looking forward to having a place of my own to make into my own personal paradise. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for me to realize that something was off. To start with, I started to notice strange noises coming from inside the walls. It sounded like muffled scratching and tapping, like something trying to get out of the walls. I decided to ignore it because I didn't want to think something was wrong. Then things started getting a little bit more intense. I started to have really bizarre dreams that were fueled by this presence that was in my apartment. I would often wake up in the middle of the night feeling terrified, like something was watching me. That was only the beginning. Eventually, I started to encounter these strange shadows that seemed to be lurking around the apartment, always watching me. When I tried to move, they would move as well, like they could sense me. It felt like I was constantly being hunted and I was starting to lose control of my sanity. I was so desperate for escape, so I decided to call a priest to come and bless the apartment. He blessed it with holy oil and prayed for protection. That seemed to work initially, as the shadows began to dissipate and the scratching noises stopped. But the peace didn't last long, for soon I discovered the true horror that had been living in my rented apartment. One morning I awoke to find my bedroom door wide open, and a figure standing in the doorway. It appeared to be a woman, but her face was pale as a ghost and she was dressed all in black. In one hand she held a bloody cleaver and in the other a white cloth that seemed to be dripping with blood. I realized that she was the one who had been stalking me. It was the ghost of the woman who had been murdered in the apartment before I had moved in. She had been there the whole time, but I had remained oblivious, slowly being terrorized in her own home. The woman lunged at me with her cleaver, but luckily I had been blessed by a priest and she was unable to harm me. In her rage she began to scream and then disappeared in a puff of smoke and a loud bang. Since then I have never set foot in that apartment again. I still remember the cold chill that ran through my spine when that ghost of murdered woman appeared in my room. It was one of the scariest experiences I have ever had in my entire life.